magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Where you gonna be tonight? Oh, there's magic coming. There's magic coming. There's magic coming. Get ready for the rest of your life.
Welcome to SassafrasCast. SassafrasCast is a podcast full of witchy insights to help you lead your sassiest life. I am Rory Kelly, a tarot reader, singer-songwriter, and all-around personal growth nerd from Long Island, New York. We are being affected by Mercury in the microwave today, and I've had audio issues, so I'm saying all these things that I just said a few minutes ago. But for you, the listener, if you're not tuned in right now, it might be all new for you. In just a moment, we're going to begin the Witchy Weather Report, but first, a shout-out to my patrons. If you didn't know, you can support this podcast at patreon.com/sassafrastarot for $1 per month or more. I record these episodes live, which is why sometimes things go wrong. And patrons get a private YouTube link before each one, so they can tune in for the live recording, hang out in the chat, ask questions, and get them answered in real time. They also get access to my Discord server, where we talk about all things witchy and wonderful, and a shout out in every episode. Okay, here we go. Ready? Yes. Shout out to Amanda Little, Melissa Marie, Rachel Miller, Grayson, Millie Orozco, Ruby, Rebecca Jones, Brittany Campbell, Ginger Dawn Studios, and Savannah Tillett. I'm so grateful that y'all are in my world. Okay, so we're going to do the Witchy Weather Report, and I'm going to read it from this Universal Weight Tarot deck, because my Everyday Witch Tarot, I'm starting to separate for this series into the different segments of the deck. So I want to have a whole deck for you. So for starters, with this Witchy Weather Report, I'm just going to share that like everything's in the microwave right now. If you're listening to this right around the time of broadcast, either live or right when the show drops, a lot of things are in retrograde right now. I don't even know which ones, just a lot. I know Mercury is one of them. A lot of things are in retrograde right now. So this can mean that we are forced to revisit things whether we like it or not. That's my 2 cents understanding of retrograde, but it's also like what I've experienced. And if you're tuned in, and if you're like astrologically minded, and if you have been experiencing having to revisit things in your life you wish you didn't have to revisit, or maybe you're glad to revisit them, let me know. Put it in the comments, because I've found that many things, like Mercury retrograde is supposed to be about that. Revisiting, re-understanding. All the retrogrades are like that, though. And they apply to different areas of your life. Mercury retrograde has to do with communications and technology, and that's why so often these things break down during Mercury retrograde. But we have a lot of planets in retrograde, so I'm just going to tell you, at this moment in your life, expect for things from your past to come up. And expect to be like, what? And it's because it's time to get a new understanding of these things. It's a spiral growth thing, y'all. It's a good thing. We like spiral growth. And basically we're having an opportunity to learn new lessons about old stuff and evolve into the person we are meant to be around them. That is the very positive way I'm choosing to interpret it. Sometimes it's infuriating, you know? I will tell you, I'm having some fun retrograde lessons around my finances in the form of just like, I haven't been paid for anything in over a week. And it's weird because I'm a gigging musician, so usually I get paid for whatever gig I do on the day. And the last 5 of my gigs I have not received payment for. And all of it's legit. None of it's like, they stiffed me. All of it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, we didn't have the check ready. Oh, we'll get the check to you next week. You know, like some of it was negotiated that way. Oh, you know what? I was going to pay you, but then I had this mix-up with my account, so I'm so sorry. And it's all people I trust and know, and it's like, fine. Except that, that's funny. All the money I've been making isn't real yet. I know the universe is teaching me a lesson. I don't know what it is yet. And I'm just sharing with you in real time, because that's what it feels like in the retrogrades. It's like, it's a lesson. I don't get it. So expect that energy. If you're experiencing that energy, you're doing just fine. That's normal. Here is our card pull for today, for this month. If you're a patron and you're tuned in because we've had some audio issues, just type something if you can hear me. because I need the breath of fresh air that, like, yes, I can be heard. All right, here is our card. Y'all, it's the Nine of Pentacles. We are meant to, at this time, be grateful for ourselves. Focus on the things we have given to ourselves at this time. Focus on the life we have created for ourselves. Focus on the things that we've been able to build for ourselves in a very practical way. We have been able to build for ourselves financially. We've been able to build for ourselves in terms of our education, educating ourselves, showing up for learning about different things, growing our competence in different areas. If we're someone who is like a homeowner or an apartment dweller, we have probably had some practical education over the last few years of fixing things ourselves, right? And like learning what that looks like to do a thing that we never knew how to do before, but now we have to do it, and we're going to do it because no one else is showing up for it. That is what the Nine of Pentacles is about. It's about giving ourselves love around this. It's about like appreciating ourselves for all that we have done, appreciating the bounty we have created in our life. That's the lesson right now. It's not like appreciate what you have, be happy with it, and shut up. It's show some love to yourself for all that you have done. Often we aim gratitude outward. The Nine of Pentacles asks you to aim gratitude inward. And as we do this, we realize just how resourced we are, just how capable we are of creating the life of our dreams. So it goes two ways. When we have this gratitude practice, it not only helps us look back, it helps us look forward with more power. That is the energy. I like it. I like it. So today we're going to be talking about the Suit of Swords. Yes, we are the treasure. Okay, so you can hear me, so that's good. It is a lovely card, and yes, we are the friggin' treasure. So I'm sifting through my cards as I do before every episode about a new section of the tarot, because I could do this before, but why would I be prepared? I wouldn't. We're going to talk about the Suit of Swords today. Now, the Suit of Swords is kind of a bummer suit in the tarot. It gets a bad rap. Sometimes it's referred to as the Suit of Sorrows, because it really does talk about some bummer topics. Swords in the tarot has to do with communication, all the things that the element of air is associated with. So communication is one of those things. Learning what comes on the wind, so change comes on the wind, you know what I mean? Things outside our control and sometimes outside our understanding and how we interact with them. These are the things that the Suit of Swords deals with. And also, power. Swords are about power. Air is about power. If you've ever been playing a gig, I wouldn't know anything about this, and had your tip jar knocked over by a strong gust of wind, and suddenly your money and the pieces of your tip jar are everywhere, and you're supposed to be finishing a song. Yeah, air is powerful, y'all. Power and power struggle and how to relate to it is a big topic when it comes to the Suit of Swords. So that is an important, like, if I was going to give you keywords for swords, I would give you communication, education, not necessarily formal, not necessarily not formal, but just like learning, and energy. These would, not energy, I'm sorry, power. These would be my keywords for the Suit of Swords. These are the themes that are going to come up again and again. And it really can be a bummer type of suit, because there's a phrase that a friend of mine uses, AFGO, AFGO, another freaking growth opportunity. And that's what a lot of the Suit of Swords is about. It's like, oh, another growth opportunity. Great. We don't love the growth opportunities. They often, when the universe helps us grow, it knocks our feet asunder, and we have to suddenly re-understand and redefine our entire life. And a lot of the Suit of Swords talks about that. It talks about that type of learning and education that some would say, that many Facebook profiles would say, come from the school of hard knocks. The school of life, the learning that takes place just by showing up and living, whether we friggin' like it or not. I've separated out these swords. Now I'm going to put them in order. So, yeah, it can be a real bummer suit. Also, though, I think it's a suit that can build our compassion and mutual understanding and our compassion and understanding for ourselves and help us look back and reflect on what we have learned. Because as we look at the Suit of Swords, I think every one of us has been in one of these moments. The Suit of Swords, you could also almost say, is full of these mini tower moments where, like, things happen often unexpectedly, and we have to learn from them whether we like it or not, because we don't get a choice about that learning. We're like, oh, I have to learn or face the consequences of not learning, and that's just how it is. Now, that in the moment sucks. That's usually not a great feeling, but sometimes it's a good feeling. Sometimes it's an epiphany, right? Sometimes we have an epiphany and it literally changes our life. Other times, it just sucks. But all of these times we can look back on and we can feel like appreciation for who we were before and who we are now. And I want to talk about a phrase called the curse of knowledge, which I may be bringing up again and again in this suit. The curse of knowledge is a phrase I read in a book about leadership that I read back when I worked in a corporate job, and I was like reading this book to kind of like show the leadership. It was like a personal growth activity I was doing on the job to kind of move into a managerial role. And it actually was a wonderful book. I wish I could remember the title, and I can't. But they talk about the curse of knowledge, and they talk about how when you are teaching a topic, you have knowledge that others do not. And so our brain naturally is going to skip over things that have become commonplace to us, but absolutely were not commonplace to us when we were beginners. And this is why, if you want to learn about something, a subject that you struggle with, whether it's math or whether it's like dealing with your emotions around your career or whether it is something else, it's better to learn from a teacher who themselves has struggled with the topic than one who has always aced it. Because the person who's always aced it has the curse of knowledge. I've been on both sides of this because as a kid, I was like the good kid in school. Math just made sense to me. Math still just makes sense to me. And so people would ask me for help with their math homework, or people would ask me to tutor their children in math. And the problem is, math just made sense to me. So when people were struggling, it was difficult for me to find ways to explain it to them because I didn't need multiple ways to have it explained to me. I just kind of understood it from the get-go. I had the curse of knowledge. To me, it just made sense. To them, it didn't make sense. In a way, it would have been easier had I struggled with the subject, because then I would have been able to say, yeah, I really struggle with this too. Here's the trick. And swords really give us knowledge in that latter way. We struggle with this subject, and now we learn from it. And the good thing about those lessons is that they tend to be permanent. Sometimes you will have cycles in your life, especially emotional ones, where you're repeating the same cycle over and over and over. But if you're committed to learning from it, you can make it, you can break the cycle. And that's what swords are about. Angela says, my worst topic, math and my feelings. And Brittany says, swords is the bummer suit. Me, woo, I love the swords. Well, I love the swords too. But that's the energy of swords. It's about these harsh lessons, The energy of swords does not beat around the bush. It's not nice about it. It's not like, here's what you have to learn. Let's have a nice cup of tea and talk about it. It's like, here's what you have to learn. Good luck. That's swords. So let's jump in. All right, I'm just going to share the outline of this episode. I'm going to go through the Suit of Swords for you. Then I'm going to move into Which You Got This, where I'm going to give you a practical idea you can implement right now in your practice as someone working on the tarot or working with the tarot, and how it has worked for me. Then I am going to take you out with a song. That's the story. So let's talk about the beginning of swords, because the beginning of swords is an epiphany. The aces represent the best that each suit has to offer. Swords are about the element of air, which is about communication and power and learning. And the Ace of Swords embodies all three in the form of a beautiful epiphany. The Ace of Swords usually takes the form of a revelation. It can be an external revelation in terms of like, oh, something amazing information has come to light that recontextualizes everything. You know what I mean? Now we understand this, and now we can make an empowered change. Often it's an internal revelation. Often the Ace of Swords is after you've had a long, dark night of the soul, crying over your boyfriend, your math homework, your career, your money, your family situation, having that moment of realization that often for us only comes after a great deal of pain of like, this is what I have to do. And suddenly everything is no longer complex and hard. It's very, very simple. And it has to do with acceptance. You know, there's that phrase, the first step to solving a problem is accepting that you have a problem. And I have heard also the phrase, the solution to all my problems today is acceptance. That doesn't mean we just accept our problems and are like, oh, well, I guess I can't change my life. It does mean we accept that we have them. And often an epiphany can only come after acceptance. And you'll see acceptance as a practice throughout the Suit of Swords. The Suit of Swords is a mean girl self-help manual. The Ace of Swords is a beautiful epiphany. The Ace of Swords puts us back in our power. It's like, here's what I know, here's what I am, here is the truth, and the truth has and will set me free. That is the Ace of Swords. You get to that moment, often after hardship, and you're like, okay, I know. And sometimes that is more than enough after a time of turmoil and challenge, where you're like, now I know. And it becomes so simple. You're no longer in turmoil. You're like, I know what I have to do. I'll do what I have to do. Some of it I will like, some of it I won't like, but I don't have to like wrestle with it anymore. That's our ace. Twos are always about a choice. Two of Swords more than ever. Often the Two of Swords is indicated by a pair of crossed swords, someone sitting cross-legged with swords crossed like this, and a blindfold. Now, there is a blindfold in this particular deck. We're looking at the Everyday Witch Tarot, which serves up very similar symbolism to the traditional Smith-Waite deck, but has its own twist on it. And in this case, we have someone literally playing a game of darts, except with knives and swords, and they have a blindfold on. So they're supposed to aim at this target, and they're blindfolded and they can't see the target, which, let's be real, is often how we feel about life. Sometimes we're like, okay, I have an idea of what I want or where I want to be or the vibe I want to create in my life, but I can't see it. I can't see between me and it, so I can't form a plan. You know what I'm saying? I can't see those steps. And here's the Two of Swords. Now, the Two of Swords is a simple card about making decisions. It comes when we don't have all the information, which I'm going to tell you is literally every time we make a decision. Some decisions seem easy, and even then, we make them because we feel confident in ourselves and our abilities to manage whatever the outcome of our decision, not always because we have all the information, right? When we decide to buy a house, that means we're deciding not to buy every other house we looked at. When we decide to be with someone, that means we're deciding not to stay single, and that means we're deciding not to be with anyone else unless we're polyamorous, in which case we're deciding to have a whole lot of really important conversations with our various people that we want to be involved with. Every decision is actually like 10 decisions, you know? When we decide to take a job, we're deciding not to take other jobs, we're deciding not to be a freelancer, we're deciding not to remain unemployed. When we decide to do a podcast on a Saturday afternoon, it means we have decided not to do anything else with our Saturday afternoon. Thanks for coming today. So it feels in the moment. The Two of Swords feels like one of those decisions where you're like, I don't know what path is better. And you know what's true is after we've made the decision, it doesn't matter. Rarely, I find, do I make a decision like that and look back and go like, oh no, I don't know, maybe I chose wrong. And then if I do, it's almost a blessing because I'm like, oh, I chose wrong, I have to fix this. And that feels like a mess, but then I know what I want and I fix it. It's kind of like when you flip a coin and as it's up in the air, you realize what one you're rooting for and you don't need to flip the coin anymore. That's the Two of Swords energy. So our goal with the Two of Swords is to find the confidence, to make a decision knowing that we are good even if it's the wrong decision. It's a confidence thing. It's about us. The Three of Swords is about miscommunication. Let's talk about Mercury retrograde because the Three of Swords is its bitch. This is definitely going to be an explicit podcast this week, y'all. I'm salty. The Three of Swords is about laying our heart on the line and feeling like we got our feelings stabbed. often we have three swords piercing a heart. We see it here in the Everyday Witch Tarot. In the traditional Rider-Waite Tarot, it's even scarier. It's like a big, beautiful heart, like a traditional Valentine's Day heart, and there's just three swords piercing it, and it's bleeding a little. It is imagery that nearly every person can relate to. I think very few people look at the Three of Swords and don't know what it means. If you have never seen a tarot card in your life and I show you the Three of Swords, you're like, oh yeah, that was the fight I had with my mom today, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I've had a lot of clients say things like that. They immediately know what the Three of Swords means, and they don't like it. Nobody likes the Three of Swords. It is the kind of learning that takes the form of either miscommunication and misunderstanding or new understanding and realizing you don't like what you're understanding. It's about your hurt feelings. When most often I find that the Three of Swords takes the forms of two different conversations inside of one conversation. I'm having one conversation, and everything I'm saying is about my very personal experience and what I've experienced and what I've gone through, and maybe, yes, my interpretation of how you're feeling, which I may or may not have correct. And your conversation is about your experience and everything you've gone through, and perhaps your interpretation of what I'm going through. And we have issues when those two worlds are not in alignment and when there's missing information. And we get our friggin' feelings hurt. Sometimes two people with the best of intentions who love each other to the moon and back hurt each other dramatically because they didn't know they were pushing on somebody's buttons, because they didn't know they were opening up a trauma wound, because they didn't know the thing that really works for them and makes them feel better every time actually makes the other person feel dismissed and unseen. You know, this is the Three of Swords, and this is something we have to live with throughout our life and our relationships. It's healthy. We don't grow in our relationship without the Three of Swords. It's the school of hard knocks. It's how we, it's how we learn. When we've been with someone, whether it's a friend or a lover or a family member that we've come to understand very well. I'm not talking about toxic codependent relationships. I'm talking about the kind of relationships where you really have each other's back. Often that learning took place during very difficult situations. People often say we've been together through thick and thin. And during those difficult times is when you really, really learn to show up for each other. During those times where you say something that you thought was going to make the other person happy and they either burst into tears or start screaming at you, that's when you learn something very important about that person. And if you care about each other, you work it out and you move through the difficult stuff, and then you come out so much stronger. Now, if a relationship is all Three of Swords all the time, that's probably toxic. If it's all Three of Swords with no later exposition of like, here, you said this and it hurt me, and I said this and it hurt you, and like, we need to come to an understanding, and we both care enough to get past this. We both care enough to move through being hurt to get to the other side of showing up for each other. That's the healthy version. The toxic version is when every conversation in a relationship feels like the Three of Swords. That's a problem. That's not the healthy growth. It's toxic. That's what I'll say. And when I say toxic, I mean it's toxic to one or both parties. It could be codependent. It could be abusive. It could be one person is, I don't like to use the word narcissist because I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, and I don't assign people diagnoses from the DSM. But, if one person is, having narcissistic tendencies, let's say, and the other person is kind of caught in that web. And sometimes we do it to each other. Sometimes a toxic relationship is toxic for both parties. And it's not necessarily either person's fault, it's just they cannot be happy together. The Three of Swords teaches you, which is it? Do we move past our hurt feelings together and come out stronger, which may take time and more hurt? Or do we just keep having the same thing again and again? The Suit of Swords, man, it's a hard teacher. Savannah says, Three of Swords reminds me of mental anguish and betrayal from yourself or others. Yes. And I would say that the big thing about the Three of Swords is often it's unintentional betrayal. Yes, we can be betrayed in terms of like, maybe someone actively betrayed us. Maybe someone cheated on us and we find out. That could be a Three of Swords moment. Maybe somebody, sabotaged something that we really wanted for us because of their own jealousy or whatever. Maybe we're experiencing jealousy. That's an internal Three of Swords where we're hurting our own feelings because we're experiencing jealousy about someone else's life and hurting our own feelings about it instead of choosing to use that feeling as a teacher. That's the healthy outcome of that internal Three of Swords. It's like, oh, I'm experiencing jealousy and pain about this. I'm going to choose to use this as a teacher to learn how I can show up for myself better. That's a relationship with ourself then. what it always involves is miscommunication and misunderstanding. It always means that either there has been a secret and now it has been brought to light, or something is still a secret and that's why it's hurting because we don't understand, or there's no secret exactly, but everyone is just saying things expecting the other person to understand and they super don't. So yeah, mental anguish for sure. And yes, there can be betrayal, often unintentional. And I mean, I know I talked about cheating. I think most cheaters, not everyone, but I think many people who end up in those kind of situations, what I hear most is that they never meant to hurt anybody and it kind of happened and they feel terribly guilty about it. And then it snowballs and it becomes like this lie that is harder and harder to untell, which is not me making an excuse, you know what I mean? But that is another example of an internal Three of Swords where you're in anguish and you know what the right thing is to do, but you're not doing it. So is it betrayal, and is it knowing betrayal? Yes. Is it intentional? Maybe not. Maybe not. Savannah says, also, I sometimes pull the Three of Swords when my feelings have been hurt, and oftentimes without communication, the other person may not even realize. Yeah. Sometimes we need to have a Three of Swords, right? Sometimes we need to have it so that we can learn each other better and be kinder to each other. Savannah says, I think I'm a few minutes behind because of my own internet. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that is a thing that happens, so no worries. Let's talk about the Four of Swords, which, by the way, is a great answer to the Three of Swords. The Four of Swords is about rest. It's one of the nicest cards in the suit of swords because we're choosing to use our power to support ourselves. We're choosing to communicate internally rather than mixing our communication and thoughts and ideas with others, and we're choosing to learn from and for ourselves. The Four of Swords is a self-reflective time. All of the fours are somewhat reflective. They're always a pause. And the Four of Swords, no less than the others, it is a pause to recover. If you've been through a difficult time, if you just had a Three of Swords moment, often the Four of Swords is a needed cool down. Like, we can't even have this conversation because I need, like, I don't know, a nap and a pint of ice cream and a bubble bath before I can face it. You know, like, because my feelings are in that much disarray. The Four of Swords is this wise choice of giving ourselves an emotional timeout, both to, if we've been through a painful situation, stop the damage, right? Like, if we're going through a situation that is hurting us and hurting us and hurting us. Now, if that were physical pain, if someone was literally stabbing us, we could not begin any type of recovery until we stopped them from stabbing us, you know, until we removed ourselves from that situation where we're getting stabbed. Emotionally, the same is true. Emotionally, even if you value the hell out of that relationship and you need to, like, fix it, giving yourself the Four of Swords is giving yourself a chance to act from not fight or flight. It's giving you a chance to regenerate and return to yourself rather than constantly being in that reactive state generated by receiving these emotional stab wounds. Again, rather intentional or unintentional. The Four of Swords is a gift to everyone. The Four of Swords is rest, and I will tell you about this card. The Four of Swords comes up. If you have not taken a Four of Swords break, it's because you need one, and if you don't choose it, the universe will choose it for you. Just as, and this has come up in this way as well for me, if you don't choose to take a break from working, your body will choose it for you. If you keep pushing yourself and overdoing it, your body will be like, oh, guess what? I'm sick or injured now. You have to take a break. Screw you. Now there's a relationship we have, the relationship with our bodies. Learning how to communicate with your body is a way to dramatically change your life. Now we're back in struggle. We have the Five of Swords. Now the Five of Swords, as you can see, we've got a lot of disarray here. The Five of Swords is a card of power struggle. And it is, I would say, one of the cards that I've seen communicated in many different ways in different decks. In some decks, it looks very similar to the Five of Wands, which is kind of fighty. And just like people are like holding their wands against each other like they're in a fight, except swords, so more impactful and dangerous. Here we see that there's these three witches around a cauldron, and there's like swords rising out of the fire of the cauldron. Probably not the original intent. There's a real sense of like too many cooks in the kitchen. Nobody is happy except for this one person. Everyone's kind of like, oh God, what happened here? Except for this one person who's like, yeah, this nonsense is exactly what I intended. I created this chaos, and I intended to, for whatever reason. The Five of Swords is about power, and Often it's about a power play that leaves one party feeling very betrayed and taken advantage of, and leaves the other party having, like the victor. And I will share that when you're reading for yourself or another person, you can be either party. And in neither case is it really fun. If you're in a power struggle with someone, perhaps at work, perhaps in a relationship, winning doesn't feel great, because winning just means like, okay, my reality is better than yours, screw you, I win. And we've all been in those situations where maybe we felt like we had to draw a boundary with someone and we had to forcibly get our way, either because it was like a safety issue and we knew it was right, or because we had been in an abusive, toxic situation and we knew we couldn't continue, or because whatever, the other person was just being unreasonable and really couldn't have what they wanted and we just had to force the situation. I think everyone's been in that situation a time or two, and victory does not feel good. You don't feel like, oh good, I got what I wanted. You're like, this is over, I guess. And we've also all been in situations where someone else has made a decision for us. Probably a decision that we knew they didn't like. They knew we didn't like. And we're just stuck with the results. And they chose and they took our power away. Neither one feels super good. And I'll take a moment to share that, this sense of competition and there can only be one winner is a direct product of the patriarchy. Yes, we're going there. It's a direct product of the patriarchy, and it's a direct product of the toxic masculinity idea that there is one winner and there is one loser, and that's the way of life, and you just try to be the winner all the time. And that is an idea that anyone of any gender can espouse, but I will say that, like, the patriarchy, it's a piece of the patriarchy. And we have seen that when women negotiate as a not mixed gender group with each other, the negotiation looks very different. It looks very different from win-loss. It looks more like, how can we create a situation where we all at least get some of what we want? And how can we dig deeper into the information to find out how everyone can be happy? Perhaps there's a way that everyone can be satisfied if we think about it, carefully. The Five of Swords is the opposite of that. The Five of Swords is the power struggle. The Five of Swords is like, my way, my way, my way, and then somebody wins. And at the end, nobody's really super thrilled. Power struggle. Now let's talk about the Six of Swords. I thought the Six of Swords was a fairly positive card until I met someone who had been from a very bad Six of Swords situation. Because the Six of Swords is a card of rescue. Either being the rescuer or being the rescuee, which one could say it's positive to be rescued. On the other hand, much like the Five of Swords, by the time you need that situation, you're not happy. And I remember doing a reading for someone who had to leave Puerto Rico during, there was like several hurricanes in a row that really left Puerto Rico devastated. And it was just like there was no power for months. It was like an impossible living situation for many people, and she basically left in so many words as a refugee. Like, she was, she felt very lucky and grateful that she had someone who was able and willing to take her in and like give her literal safe harbor. And at the same time, so she was rescued, you know what I mean? And her situation could have been worse. She could have been not had access to that level of rescue. She could have just had to figure out this situation that was bad and getting worse, and instead she did get, rescued. But she had to leave her whole home behind. Her life was shattered. The entire life she had been building in Puerto Rico was simply no more overnight. And yeah, she got to rebuild and she got rescue, and she had the benefit of having someone who really cared about her, willing to say, like, just stay with me as long as you need to stay with me, and that's wonderful, And it felt horrible in every possible way. Like, sometimes being rescued is not wonderful. And that's the dire situations we're talking about with the Six of Swords. And I also want to bring this up because sometimes in our relationships, we can fall into roles of rescuer and rescuee. And it's often not healthy for either party. Now, there are dire times when it's appropriate and important to rescue someone or to be rescued by someone. It's important and appropriate to let somebody help you out of a horrible situation, to not lock yourself into doing it yourself, and to sometimes accept the reality of what a bad situation you're in and allow yourself, therefore, to be rescued. It's important and appropriate also to help someone if we possibly have the means to do so and they really need help. You know, if we have that ability and the situation arises, it's a blessing, you know, to be that person who shows up as the rescuer. There are also people and relationships where one person is constantly rescuing the other person in small ways that add up. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'll bail you out. Oh yeah. Oh, your car broke down. I'll pick you up. Oh, you don't have any money for dinner tonight. I guess I got it. Oh, you have another breakup and you need to cry on my couch for a few days. Okay. And, you know, that's a codependent thing. When one person is constantly rescuing or being rescued. And I'm here to say that it's both parties. It's both parties because both parties are deciding to continue that. And so the Six of Swords, I would say reversed, could come up to indicate that kind of codependence. That kind of like, we keep doing a rescue and we're not actually in a situation that warrants rescue. So it's a card that should be great. You know, like it feels good to be rescued. Does it? Because after you get rescued, you have the aftermath, you have your trauma to deal with, you have to rebuild your life, and that can be very hard. So the Suit of Swords, it's a bummer suit. We're about halfway through. Here's the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords is a card of secrets. I am going to share a very traditional interpretation as well as my very deeply personal experience with the Seven of Swords. A traditional interpretation of this Seven of Swords is duplicity, keeping secrets, cheating, betraying someone by withholding information, or lying. All of those things we associate with some level of judgment. We associate with like, whoever did this is a real asshole. You know what I mean? And the untold story of the Seven of Swords is that almost always there is a reason the person feels they have to do this. Now, in this imagery here, we see someone carrying away 7 swords, got a bunch of swords. There's wind blowing in through the window. There's like a gust of wind. There's obviously like, it's a very tumultuous time. They are leaving by night. Probably the person doesn't know they're leaving, who is like hosting them or whatever. And they've gathered up some swords, which may or may not belong to them. And they're like, bye. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you had to just take what you can and get out? Because I have, and I'm grateful that I only have that I haven't in ways that are like as impactful and horrendous as it might be for other people. But Seven of Swords could look like someone being duplicitous and lying because they have to get out of an abusive relationship. And if they tell the person that they're intending to leave them, they might literally face more abuse or face physical harm or worse. The Seven of Swords can look like, and did look like for me, leaving a job that was not my true passion and becoming a full-time freelancer, a full-time musician. And I could not let my boss know months and months ahead when I made the plan, hey, guess what? I'm going to leave this job at a certain time, because that was my livelihood and I wouldn't be able to, provide for myself. Seven of Swords comes up in short when there's a double life being led. And sometimes that double life is through someone being duplicitous and unpleasant, for sure. And sometimes there's a reason, and maybe both, you know what I mean? It's depicted on the Smith-Waite deck as a person kind of in a circus outfit, like leaving a circus. There's tents all around, and he's got 7 swords, and he's got this kind of like look on his face like, I got these swords, what are you going to do about it? And he's just walking away. And it's like, did he steal those swords? Did he take them from someone? Did he swindle someone? And we don't know. What we do know is that Seven of Swords is about secrets, it's about not having all the information, and it is about duplicity. Because it's clear that regardless of why and whether this character in the Seven of Swords, leaving with all these swords in the middle of the night, whether they're a good person or not, it's clear that they're being duplicitous. Sometimes people do have to be duplicitous for their survival. Sometimes, too, I think a lot about queer kids coming out. Being in the closet is the Seven of Swords. If you have to be in the closet for your safety, or you're simply not ready yet to come out, your emotional safety then, you're in the Seven of Swords. You are being duplicitous, and you are not being duplicitous to be a bad person. You're being duplicitous out of a move of self-protection because of deep-seated fear, which is sometimes justified, right? Like there are people who cannot safely come out to their parents because they might be beaten or kicked out. There are people who cannot safely come out in their neighborhood because they might be a victim of gay bashing. There are people who cannot safely come out because people in their lives would abandon them and then they would have nobody. Seven of Swords, it's a more complex card than many people give it credit for. Are there also people who would just cheat and lie for whatever, self-aggrandization and getting what they want? Maybe. I'm of the opinion personally that a lot of the bad things people do is just complicated. I don't believe in pure evil. That's me. You could feel differently. I don't believe in pure evil. I don't believe in people who are horrible just to be horrible. I believe that those personalities sometimes develop, and usually it's because of pain and trauma. And, whether that doesn't mean we don't need to hold ourselves accountable, right? It doesn't mean that if something bad happened to me in childhood, I get to go be a serial killer. I'd still be the bad person if I did that, But it does mean that the truth is complicated. And so these are the two sides I present to you of the Seven of Swords. And I would say Seven of Swords reversed is a Bizarro world situation there. Reversals are like the Bizarro world of a card. It's not necessarily the exact opposite. It's weird now. Seven of Swords, but make it weird. That's how you can think of reversals. Seven of Swords reversed, maybe someone being duplicitous when they really don't need to be, and they tell themselves, oh, I'm lying because I have to. I don't have a choice. And really what they're doing is being unfair and untrustworthy. Or Seven of Swords reversed could look like someone with trust issues who is constantly going through their partner's phone, looking for proof that they are cheating. And in fact, who's being the untrustworthy partner in that case, right? Now you're violating somebody's privacy. Who's the untrustworthy partner? Maybe both of you, but you at a minimum, if you're that person. So that's the Seven of Swords. It's a complicated story. Let's move on to the Eight of Swords. I worked with this card once for a whole year. So we're talking about this. Brittany said at the beginning of this, the swords is like, yes, swords, my favorite suit. And in fact, Ange said that to me too in like a text or something earlier. Those of us who have been through a lot of these swords things, yeah, it's a suit of sorrows, but I think that there's some victory speeches to be looked at in this deck. When we go through the swords, all of these bummer situations and come out the other side, it requires us to learn about ourselves. It requires us to learn what we've got. It requires us to learn that we're good for some amount of struggle and can get through it and come out the other side stronger and more badass. And that's worth remembering. Now, the Eight of Swords is about self-sabotage. It is about the pain that comes from believing you are powerless to change your situation. And importantly, that belief is false. Is that belief always false? No. The Eight of Swords is one that comes up. There are times when you really are powerless, right? There are times when we can't control the weather, we can't control whatever. If your computer shuts down in the middle of an important moment and then it, blue screens and then please don't happen to me, computer, I wasn't giving the universe a dare. You know what I mean? We can't control everything that happens to us. We are powerless over some things. There are external forces we cannot control, even by manifesting, because life is life. And life is chaos, and life is full of other people also impacting us. But the Eight of Swords is when we've internalized that lack of control. So there's a term that people use. The Suit of Swords is so psychological, y'all. Maybe that's why so many of us love it. It's called locus of control. And the question is, do you believe you have an internal or an external locus of control? Now, in reality, the answer is bothie, right? In reality, there are things we can influence in our life and there are things we can't control, right? In reality, I can't control it if my car breaks down in the middle of I-95 when I'm on my way to a gig. Please don't let that happen. This is not a dare universe. I can't control it if that happens. All I can do is respond to the situation as best I can, right? But also in reality, I have influence. Also in reality, if I know my car is a piece of shit, I can take it to my guy and be like, let's get a tune-up before I do this road trip. I want to make sure this car is roadworthy, right? Also, in reality, I can, maybe buy a car with a warranty and do my best to keep up with its recommended maintenance. Hopefully, if I can afford that. Because also, in reality, external locus of control, 2020 might happen, right? And I'm sure there are people who were like, yes, I will do the oil change on my car. I will do the tire rotation, all the things you're supposed to do. And then 2020 happened and they're like, I will just buy my groceries because that's literally all I can afford, right? In reality, it's a mix. We have influence over our lives, but not control over our life. And the Eight of Swords is when we believe we have no power. And we've become so consumed by feelings of powerlessness that we don't see a way out. And often we're in a bad struggle situation, like we feel trapped in these situations. So I think about victims of abuse who just don't feel they can leave. They don't see a way out. And everyone asks victims of abuse, why didn't you leave? And it's like such a shitty question to ask. You know what I mean? Like, if you have ever been in a situation where you are frightened of somebody, a very natural human response is to just try to appease that person and hope they'll get nicer because you're afraid, you know? It's complicated, is what I'm saying. But the Eight of Swords is where we have internalized this powerlessness to our detriment. It means that our life could be better, and we're not taking the steps, not because we're just lazy, but because we literally can't see them because we're so stuck in the belief that we're helpless. Probably because of trauma. Probably because we have been helpless in the past. The Eight of Swords is a need for an epiphany. When we have the Eight of Swords, we have a need for the truth to set us free. You can see on the Eight of Swords, there's a bird here. There's a bird in almost every iteration of the Eight of Swords, sometimes multiple birds. And the birds, to me, always represent messages and helpers. We feel very alone in the Eight of Swords. We feel like no one can solve our problems, especially not me. I'm just stuck. I'm a martyr. We feel like we're the hanged man in the Eight of Swords, but we're not. And if we are thoughtful and put on our listening ears, as my preschool teacher friend would say, if we put on our listening ears, we may find that there are voices saying, no, there's another way. We may find that there are people saying, I'll give you a hand, I'll help you out. You know, and we may find that if we choose to listen to those, we may find power we didn't know we have, or options we didn't know we have. And in fact, when you're stuck in the Eight of Swords, it really does feel like power. It's a power struggle. You feel like, I don't have the power to change this. And often, the epiphany is in the form of realizing, I don't have to change this particular thing. I have a different option. If I can't go through, I can go around. You know, if I can't make this particular job work, I can quit it and find a better job. If, you know, like, often it's like an out-of-the-box thinking, you know, type of solution that is required in these situations. But it's about our personal growth. I got this card as my card of the year, my guide card for a year, and I worked with it for a year. And let me tell you, that year transformed me. And let me tell you also, that year was 2020. And like, all the bad stuff happened, a lot of which was out of my control. And yet, every day I was working with this card, the message of which was like, you have more control than you think. You have more power than you think. And let me tell you, I transformed my life in 2020. Even as all the bad things were happening, I couldn't stop them from happening. But a lot of aspects in my life and my own personal psychology improved in that year. And it wasn't because like, oh, things just worked out. It was because I did the work, you know? So not a bad card for personal transformation. Oh, wow. Chaka says, I get Eight of Swords all the time in my journaling. If you're interested, I have an Eight of Swords meditation that I developed. If anyone is interested, if you're listening to this podcast right now, during that year that I worked with the Eight of Swords, I developed a little like meditation / visualization that I would go through almost every day to help me break through, to help me give myself that epiphany. And I would be happy to send it to you. I have it like written up somewhere. And if you are a person on the internet just listening and you're like, wow, I could use that visualization in my life, email me, SassafrasTarot@gmail.com. I'd be happy to share it with you. Let's move on to the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords is about anxiety, everybody's favorite. The Nine of Swords is also often called the nightmare card, and often when this card comes up, people have literally had trouble sleeping. It's a fair bet. If you're a tarot reader and this card comes up and you don't know what else to say, if you say, have you had trouble sleeping lately? Have you had a lot on your mind lately? That the person is going to answer in the affirmative to one of those questions. The Nine of Swords is the what if card, but not the good what if card. It's the like, oh God, what if? What if a plane crashes into my house like it's Donnie Darko? What if, like, I don't know, the Hadron Collider collides and knocks us into another timeline? Maybe it already did. What if Yellowstone goes off tomorrow? What if I lose my job? What if nobody believes that I'm the person I am and I get, you know, like treated badly through things that I can't control? What if, right? What if they don't really love me? What if they don't really care? What if I reveal the truth about myself and everyone hates me now? What if I lose my friends? What if there's a misunderstanding and I don't ever get the chance to explain myself? What if? That is Nine of Swords. It is the anxiety card, and I'm here to tell you, when this card comes up, the worst thing you can do is tell people to just relax. Because have you ever been anxious? Have you ever been in that state of like panic, like, oh God, all this bad stuff could happen? Did it help when someone was like, relax? Were you like, oh, okay? No. When the Nine of Swords comes up, and I tell this to you if you're ever reading for someone, including if you're reading for yourself, the only correct response is kindness and compassion. The only correct response is like to take the person in hand. Because the Nine of Swords, like, this is emotional torture. You know, we're having so much worry that we have forgotten that good things can also happen. And often that is a perspective that's helpful. When we worry about what if, when we worry about what if the worst happens, a helpful perspective can be, what if the best happens? Could you imagine what that could be like? And it's not saying that the worst also couldn't happen. It's just a reminder that also we can have good surprises. And that was something that helped me a lot, especially in 2020, which was a shit show, you know? And I've talked about how there was a lot of personal growth for me in 2020. It was not the fun growth. It was not like, look at me growing. It was awful. A perspective that really helped me was realizing that if all of these catastrophic things can happen, both personally and publicly, because in my experience, most people I know had both personal catastrophe and public catastrophe in 2020. One can beget the other, for sure. If all these catastrophic things can happen, then catastrophically wonderful things can happen too. If the whole world can shut down because of stupid friggin' nonsense and it changes us irrevocably, then also the whole world can get on board with some kind of important social justice thing that changes us irrevocably for the better. If I can lose my job over crazy, stupid bullshit that is beyond my control, I could also get offered an amazing job or opportunity because of crazy, stupid bullshit that's beyond my control. If I can have horrendous bad luck, I can also have horrendously good luck. And that is a reminder that I think is helpful when you're already in that space of like, what if? Like, you know what? To the degree that all this bad stuff can happen, all kinds of good stuff could happen too. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And when we acknowledge, when you're saying to someone like, well, you know, yeah, this horrible thing could happen. A plane could crash into your house, but also you could win the lottery, you know, and have a whole new house the very next day, in fact. And when they're like, okay, that's not realistic, then as soon as that rational part of our brain kicks in, we have to realize, okay, and neither is the plane crashing into my house. Like, yeah, it could happen, but the chances are, I don't know the statistics on like a plane crashing into your house versus winning the lottery. Probably there's a few factors that goes into that, but the chances are very slim in either case. You know what I mean? And we start to come back to our wisdom. Anyway, yes, catastrophizing. Absolutely, Savannah. Nine of Swords is about catastrophizing. Compassion is the correct response to the Nine of Swords every single time. Let's talk about the Ten of Swords. We hate it. The Ten of Swords, I think, is one of the top 3 terrifying cards in the tarot. Top 4. The top 4 cards that nobody fucking likes to see in a reading, that if it comes up, guarantee you my client, whether they've ever had a tarot reading before or know anything about the cards or not, will hate it. Ten of Swords, the Tower, Death, and the Devil. I will add that Death and the Devil are both misunderstood, in my opinion, and both have some positive, like some redeeming qualities, and the Tower as well. The Ten of Swords, kind of sucks. It's a bad card. It's also a card, however, that is rarely unexpected. I would say the Ten of Swords, first of all, it's the ultimate betrayal. That's it. That's the Ten of Swords. It's the ultimate betrayal. Right? This person has been stabbed in the back with a lot of swords. They're lying on the ground, reaching for their sword, which might at one point have protected them, but now they're actually reaching for their broom, which would have gotten them out of there because they're a witch. It's a flying broom. That's the concept of the deck. They're reaching for something that might have helped them, but obviously they didn't get to it in time because they've got swords in their backs. They have been stabbed a lot of times, and their assailant is running away. The Ten of Swords is the ultimate betrayal. It's like, I have fallen and I can't get back up. The positive thing about the Ten of Swords is that it is the end. If we let it be the end. The Ten of Swords for sure is a breakup card. It is a card of betrayal. It also could be a card of betrayal without a breakup. It could be a card of whatever, finding out someone cheated on you. It could be a card of losing someone you care about, whether to literal death or whether to like a misunderstanding and it just never works out with that person again, you know, and you don't have the power to control that situation. The Ten of Swords really is about powerlessness. The Ten of Swords is like some shit dropped out of the sky and happened to you, and now you have to recover. The good thing about the Ten of Swords is it's the end of the situation, is that now you get to recover. You have 10 swords in your back, so that's going to be hard. You know, like, nobody's happy after the 10 of swords. And I have to say, very few people don't expect the 10 of swords. I used to get this card in readings for clients, and I'd be like, oh no. And 9 times out of 10, when the 10 of swords comes up, they already know about the bad situation. Either they already know it's coming to a horrific end, or it already has come to a horrific end. It's not a surprise. But it sucks. And it feels like a betrayal. The Ten of Swords is a bummer card, and we need to just let ourselves experience it as a bummer. We don't need to make every card better than it is. It's true that everything, like life, right? Every tarot card has aspects that can be seen as silver linings and can be seen as bummers. Like life, that's true. And at the same time, also like life, when we toxic positivity ourselves through every situation, we miss the growth, right? When we're like, well, whatever, you just lost your job and your car and your dog and your whole life is like a stupid country song and your wife and everything. But, you know, positive thinking, you know, like that positive thinking doesn't help anybody. Instead, it's helpful to be like, all right, you know, I've lost all these things. I'm going to have to move through that trauma, like acceptance. Acceptance is the first step to solving our problem. Again, that doesn't mean we accept that we just have problems and can't do anything about it. It means that we're like, okay, I have these problems. I was here and now I'm friggin' here. The Ten of Swords is you can only go up from here. Which, by the way, is going to be my song of the day today. The Ten of Swords is like, yeah, everything sucks. But now I get to rebuild. I was betrayed. I was powerless. I was the victim. But now I get to claim my power because my assailant is gone and I can begin to rebuild my life. Now I am the director of the movie that is my life. So is that toxic positivity? I don't think so, because I think we have to acknowledge like there's trauma and healing is going to be involved, and healing is painful. You know what I mean? Like, just like if you literally got stabbed 10 times, if you miraculously survived that, like you're going to be in pain for a long time. You're going to have to go to the hospital. You're going to hope that you live in a country with better health insurance than America. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a hefty bill. They're going to have to pull the swords out. They're going to have to stop the bleeding. There are going to be organs that have been pierced that might not work right anymore. Like, you have a recovery ahead of you that's not going to feel great. However, it's recovery. And there is an element of hope that goes with recovery. So we always know that after the Ten of Swords comes with recovery. We begin to recover. We begin to heal. Unless Ten of Swords reversed, we keep leading ourselves into our own doom. We keep betraying ourselves by showing up perhaps again and again for someone who betrays us, by continuing to go back to a relationship where we know we only get hurt, by continuing to show up for a situation in life, whether it's a relationship or a job or anything else, where we know it keeps making us feel worse and worse and worse. But for some reason, we're like, okay, but I'll keep showing up by continuing to break our own hearts, essentially. That's the Ten of Swords reversed, right there. Ten of Swords reversed can also be like looking for that where there is none. It can be like, actually, your relationship is hard right now because you're facing difficult topics and you have to fix it. And that's going to take work on both sides, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be Three of Swords. But if you keep thinking, it's the end, it's the end, it's the end, well, first of all, that makes it very hard to fix the Three of Swords. And secondly, then you're like this push me, pull you energy, right? Like, is it over? Is it not over? Am I investing my energy in this? Am I trying to recover from this? Like, you can never heal. All right. We're into the court cards. let's talk about the Page of Swords. The court cards, by the way, are like a breath of fresh air from the bummers, because the court cards are about us as we move through life's trials, as we move through the education that life is providing to us, like it or not, and we grow into better and wiser versions of ourselves. The Page of Swords is a student of life. The Page of Swords could be a literal student, or it could be someone who is literally choosing to be a student of life at this time. In other words, someone who's like maybe on a new journey in their life. They're learning about a hobby they're very interested in. They're bettering themselves in some intellectual way. The Page of Swords also could be bettering themselves in terms of communication. If you are someone who has ever been a people pleaser, and now you're learning what it looks like to navigate conversations that are about just having the conversation instead of constantly being hypervigilant about making sure the other person feels good, that's Page of Swords. You are relearning a skill you thought you had in a way that is healthier for you. You're choosing to make yourself a student. That is the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords chooses to be a student, whether literally or whether figuratively. You know, where Page of Swords is like, I need to learn about this topic, so I'm gonna. If you are recovering from trauma and you decide to go get therapy, you're the Page of Swords. You are learning. You're like, therapize me. Teach me what I need to know. If you are embarking on a journey to take care of yourself better and you like buy a book that's supposed to help you about it, you're the Page of Swords. If you are someone who wants to grow in your chosen profession or in an area of your life and you don't know how, when you choose to accept help for that and look for a teacher, you're the Page of Swords. When you're like, I don't know how to do this, I guess I just won't, then maybe you're the Page of Swords reversed. If you're the Page of Swords upright, you're like, I don't know how to do this, but I bet someone does because other people have done this before. I will go look for the teacher. Then you're the Page of Swords. It's a real healthy attitude, and it's a fresh start, and it's a beginning. And the pages are like mini fools. The page carries all the help and naivete of the fool. And that's a blessing. Now we have the Knight of Swords. Now we have learned just enough to get ourselves into trouble. Have you ever met someone who like is working on their emotional recovery? Maybe they had a breakup. Maybe they just discovered the secret. And they become like a bully about like positive thinking. And they become like a bully about like how you set boundaries and how you talk. And like everything for them is like, this is what you have to do. And what they're really doing is writing their own autobiography onto your life. That's a danger with the Knight of Swords, because the Knight of Swords has taken that step of beginning to learn, and is the obnoxious person about it. And that's not always bad. That's a phase we need to go through. The Knight of Swords, in a negative way, is the Psych 101 student who is diagnosing everybody they know. The Knight of Swords is also the person who's like, I've been, like, for example, I'm talking about people pleasing because it's something that I've struggled with in the past, and, like, this is how this card has come up for me. I've been a people pleaser my whole life, and I'm learning how to set boundaries. And it's going to be messy every time. It's just going to be like this every time. You know, because I don't know how to set boundaries in a not messy way, and you have to do it messy before you can do it right. Before you can set a boundary that's the perfect boundary that feels like, yes, I affirm your needs, but I have to take care of my needs, and here's the boundary, and I know just how to take it. Before you can have that perfect, calm boundary setting, you have to have the messy-ass boundary setting. That is either like, no boundary, no boundary, no boundary, shit, I need a boundary right now, or it's like, fuck you and everyone that you came with, you know, like, you can't treat me this way out of the blue because the person didn't even know. We have to set messy boundaries before we can set clean ones, because we're learning. And similarly, we have to be messy in our understanding of, for example, that Psych 101 patient who's diagnosing everyone they know. We have to be messy in our understanding before we can be clean and precise in our understanding. We have to have the ugly learning, and that's what the Knight of Swords is about, and it is a sacred process. It's a process of being like, yeah, you know, and especially with communication, this card comes up a lot as us relearning how to communicate. I'll say it again because it's important. Relearning how to communicate. When do we learn how to communicate, kids? Kind of we don't. We learn how to speak by kind of watching everybody else speak as a baby, and we kind of soak that up and eventually say some stuff. And we learn some social norms in our community at the same time, and that affects our understanding not just of language, but of communication as a whole, but we never consciously learn to communicate, most of us. It's not taught in schools. Until you get to college, you can major in communications, but it's a whole different major than what I'm talking about. We don't learn just to have these like one-on-one conversations that are healthy and feel good. So many people, if they're having any kind of journey where they're recovering from past trauma, or they're learning how to have a better relationship with themselves or anyone else, relearning communication is a part of that. And so the Knight of Swords comes up when there's going to be a series of conversations and they have to be messy, because that's the only way you'll learn. You know, like if you're learning how to speak your mind, you have to speak your mind messy before you can speak it nice. If you are learning how to set boundaries, you have to set them messy before you can set them perfectly. If you are learning how to listen to somebody, you have to do it messy before you can learn it right. Like you'll make a bumbling mistake. You know what I mean? If you're learning how to be a counselor, for example, it's necessary that you're going to say some stupid shit that you're like, oh, can I just pull those words back into my mouth at a very critical time? And that's just part of learning. And you have to show up for the messiness. You have to be willing to get it wrong in order to be able to get it right. Ooh, love that. Ange says, got the Page of Swords earlier this year and started a small painting of her. I love it. All right, let's talk about the King and Queen of Swords. The Queen and King of Swords. We're going to start with the Queen. The Queen of Swords knows her fucking truth. The Queen of Swords is in her power with her truth. So is the King. These are ways they're similar. You know how I feel about gender. You know that I do not... I'm simply not here for pretending that a queen and a king are necessarily different because one is male and one is female. There's so much more that goes into different people's experiences than gender. There are people who are cisgendered and feel a great deal of meaning in like, this is who I am and it's because I'm a woman or whatever. And I'm not one of those people and I can't read the cards like that. And if you're looking for a reader like that, there's a lot of them out there. So the Queen and King of Swords are masters. They're masters of their domain. They know and understand all the things that swords have to teach us. It has been hard won. Now, the Queen of Swords, and this is because of our gender norms in our society, so grain of salt. The Queen of Swords is often portrayed as someone who has her own truth and there's an emotionality to it, even though swords is not, when you reach the top, the idea is to be like a Vulcan, to be like all rational all the time. Now, that's not actually the best thing. The best thing is to have rational perspective so that you can work with your feelings in a way that doesn't light the world on fire. You know what I mean? For example, having a mastery of understanding psychology can benefit you when you're feeling so falling apart that you have to fall back on that logical knowledge because in your mind, the world is on fire. The Queen of Swords is sometimes depicted as a bitch because we see women who are secure and grounded in their truth as bitches. The Queen of Swords is sometimes depicted as somebody who doesn't know when to keep her mouth shut and be tactful and just tactlessly says shitty shit. But you know what? Both, like, anyone can do that. And that's actually more of a Knight of Swords activity of like, have you ever experienced someone who's like, well, I had to say it because it's the truth. Do you want me to lie? And it's like, you didn't have to lie, you just had to be tactful. You know what I mean? Like, there actually is a middle road between lying about something and being a tactless asshole. You know what I mean? The Queen of Swords actually is not a tactless asshole, but people may interpret her to be because people interpret women in their power who are certain of themselves and what they have to say as tactless sometimes. People interpret women who know what they're talking about and don't kowtow and don't say, did that make sense? And don't minimize themselves. People sometimes interpret them as aggressive, even when they're not. So sexism plays into the Queen of Swords' life because we live in a sexist society. And as a result, if anything, she's had to become more sure of herself, more forthcoming about her truth, and more willing to cut through bullshit. Because if you finally get secure in your truth and you say your truth and the people who are close to you are like, yeah, good for you. And then some guy you've never met on the internet is like, wow, what a bossy bitch you are. Like, I can't believe you said that stupid shit and doesn't know you, but just feels entitled to comment because, like he's a man on the internet and you're a woman. You have to be able to cut through that bullshit for what it is. You have to be so secure in your truth that you can identify this person is making judgments about me that are baseless. Like, slice, slice, slice. I am not receiving that information as valid and helpful. And the Queen of Swords has had to do that. because we don't like women in power. And the Queen of Swords has power and has wisdom, which are both traits that we tend to associate negatively with women. It's like this neat way that the patriarchy makes women feel like they don't want power, because women truly do get punished for being in their power, both emotionally and like in terms of owning their truth and knowing, like honoring themselves and trusting themselves, and literally in power. So the Queen of Swords, in short, has been through some shit that the King of Swords has not been through. The Queen of Swords, as a result, may be abrasive at times, may have triggers and trauma, may have topics that she's like, we're not discussing this further because I've already arrived at my conclusion and I'm not going to subject myself to it. And that may seem to some to be shitty and brusque. And in reality, it may be like a self-protective thing. Now, the King of Swords has male privilege. The King of Swords is someone who perhaps the Queen of Swords might have evolved into if she didn't grow up in a sexist world. The King of Swords is by the book. He believes in facts. He believes in science. He believes in logic. He believes that no problem cannot be solved by stepping back and getting rational and logical. He believes that there is a book about it. He believes that if it has not been already figured out, that it can be figured out by the scientific method. The King of Swords reversed may be a fool about that. The King of Swords reversed might be the person who is like, I believe in science, not your little herbal witchcraft, and may be the person who is made a fool of when a herbal remedy then later gets validated 3 years later by science as being effective because the studies were done. The King of Swords upright is like, let's see the facts. There are no facts yet. Let's do the math. Let's do the experiments. The King of Swords reversed is like, this hasn't already been proven by science. I don't believe in it. It's pretend. And misses the boat, because science is constantly proving new things. And I'm not just saying this as like a holistic person. I don't actually have a horse in the race about like, will science prove spiritual things? Like, to me, it's more about my experience that I engage in spirituality, and I don't need it to be objectively, verifiably true. I just need it to be meaningful for me. But science, everything that has been proved by a scientific study at one point was thought to be untrue. The march of science is about the march of progressive thought and the march of like, let's fucking try this out and see what happens. And scientific experiments are just that. They're designed to uncover the truth. So the King of Swords is about, let's get to the real truth. The King of Swords is like, let's find out. Let's test that theory. Let's look to the books. If it's not in the books, let's test it, right? Let's experience what we need to experience to know the answer for sure. He's very logical. He's very rational. That can also mean, and this is true of both the King and the Queen of Swords, that he comes off as a super know-it-all sometimes. That he's like, comes off as a condescending prick because he's like, well, that's not going to work. And it's maybe because he's read the book and he knows it's not going to work, but the way he says it is a little tactless and makes you feel like, okay, you could just explain why. Like the wise King of Swords, who understands that he has the King of Knowledge, might be like, let me stop you right there. I can understand why you would think that, but I also went through this learning, and I can tell you, I can save you some time by letting you know that's not going to work. We're back to the curse of knowledge. Both the King and Queen of Swords have the curse of knowledge. They have the curse of having been through it and been there and done that and learned a lot. And not everyone they interact with will have that knowledge. And that means conversations will be difficult. Now, the highest echelon that they can try to be is a teacher. Someone who meets people where they're at, still understands that they have their knowledge, owns all of their responsibility in terms of like, I have this knowledge. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to make myself less and pretend I know less. But I can still meet someone where they're at. Right? I have done all this studying. I have studied the math and the calculus and the this and this and this and this, but my 5-year-old kid needs to learn how to add 2 plus 2 right now. And all of that information about calculus doesn't help me. I need to meet my kid where he's at, or he'll never get to calculus. So that is like the highest echelon for a King and Queen of Swords. A King and Queen of Swords reversed, and I feel like they're always right and don't need to explain themselves and just expect everyone to shut up and get it. And that is when they're lost in the curse of knowledge. They have the knowledge that I think everyone else should. There's the Suit of Swords. It's a journey, y'all. Next up, we'll be doing wands, which is fire. So get excited for that. That's next episode. I'm all about the suit of wands. It's fire, it's passion, it's creativity. We are now at Which You Got This, the portion of the podcast where I give you a tip that you can apply and use in your own readings. And the tip I want to give you in this particular case is reversals. We talk about reversals a lot in the tarot. What happens if a card comes up reversed? Also, second thing is, do you deliberately reverse some cards by like taking cards and going like this, you know, so that you shuffle some reversals in, or do you just let reversals show up, etc.? I'm someone who does not deliberately shuffle reversals into my cards, but they still happen, especially when I'm at tarot parties. If I'm like reading for 100 people in a night, maybe more like 30 people in a night if I'm being realistic. If I'm reading for a bunch of people in a row, reversals happen because whatever, you're doing this all night, is going to happen. So I do it that way because I feel that when a reversal comes up, I want to pay attention to it. That's not the only way to approach it. You could just introduce reversals into your deck and have, instead of 78 degrees of meaning in your deck, whatever 78 times 2 is. I'm tired. When a reversal comes up, many people assume a reversal means the opposite of the card. It does not. A reversal means this card, but make it weird. That's the key word I want you to take away. I've often said bizarro world, this card. That's another way to think about it. But it's this card, but make it weird. So yeah, it can mean 100 different things, just like an upright card can mean 100 different things. So yeah, context matters a whole lot. Just like when you're doing a reading with all upright cards, the cards around it might have something, the context of who you are and who you're reading for, and your question. Don't forget to ask a good question. If you ask at the beginning of this card, what do I need to do to get into law school? And then, I don't know, the Seven of Swords comes up. You don't get sidetracked by saying the Seven of Swords could mean somebody's cheating on someone. I wonder if someone in my life is cheating on me. No, you asked, what do I have to do to get into law school? If the Seven of Swords comes up, it indicates that you might actually have to be duplicitous. You might have to continue to live your life and not let people make your moves in silence. You might have to not let people know you're planning to go to law school, but just continue to live your life, and meanwhile, under the cover of night, do your law school applications, because for whatever reason, that's, important to your process. So remember to ask your question. Always go back to your question. It's incredibly important context, especially if you have a reversal. Let's talk about any of these cards reversed. I'm just going to randomly pick one. I'm shuffling. I'm going to do this with a few cards so that you can kind of see my vibe here of this card, but make it weird. That's what makes a reversal. Okay, we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is learning. We know it's messy learning. The Knight of Swords is going to have 10 conversations until he learns how to have one good one. He's going to write 50 first drafts until he gets to the point where he's ready to write his real final novel. He's going to write 100 songs before he writes a great song, and then he can go back and edit his other songs or throw them out as he decides. The Knight of Swords is learning to communicate. He's learning to understand. Maybe he's a student. He's just not there yet. You have to go through the I kind of get it before you can get to I get it. Now, the Knight of Swords in reverse, take that but make it weird. What if the Psych 101 student who diagnosed everybody, what if he graduated and got his master's degree and never grew out of I diagnose everyone I meet? What if literally every personal relationship that he had in his life, every time he had a disagreement with someone, he was like, well, that's because you're a narcissist. Well, I think you have borderline personality disorder. Well, have you considered that you may have OCD? That's the Knight of Swords reversed. He's stuck in the messy learning. He hasn't learned the precision of his craft. Or he's someone who's so... Oh, are you seeing Kaylee? Is Kaylee back there? Yeah, she makes a cameo sometimes through these doors. Take the Knight of Swords, but make it weird. Is he someone who is stuck in that part of it, or she, or they? Is the Knight of Swords someone who is so stuck in that messy learning that they never actually realize and appreciate, now I can have a comfortable conversation? Is it someone who used to be a people pleaser and is like, no, I can't be a people pleaser anymore. I have to set boundaries. And now they set boundaries constantly and don't realize that they've gained that skill and don't have to be constantly hypervigilant about it. You know what I mean? They're just like, no, I guess I still have to do this forever. they don't get the opportunity to graduate into a more measured approach. That might be a Knight of Swords, but reversed. Another good way to think about a reversal is like stuck energy. Take the energy of that card and make it weird and it's stuck. Or jumper is the Five of Swords. That's what we call a card that falls out during shuffling, a jumper. You can decide to pay attention to it or not. I do. I think it's fun. The Five of Swords. Upright is already a shitty card. It's a power struggle. We have this like everyone's got an agenda with the Five of Swords, and somebody wins and somebody loses, and usually nobody feels 100% good about that. What about the Five of Swords in reverse? Take it but make it weird. Everyone's got an agenda. There's been a power struggle. Someone is betraying somebody else. Everyone's pushing for their agenda to win. It's a win-lose mentality. And the Five of Swords in reverse, take it and make it weird, is a group of people who do this on purpose again and again. I'm going to make an example of like a small town committee or like a PTA or like a small town political group where every single meeting isn't about getting things done. Every meeting just ends up a shit show where people argue at each other, and yet they keep subjecting themselves to it. Stuck energy. Five of Swords reversed. It's not just about this power struggle where there's win-lose, everybody's pushing, but we do it every single week and we can't stop. That's not, by the way, these definitions I'm suggesting are not the only definitions. We would want some context for them. Now, what if we get a reversal as an advice card? Because most of the reversal examples I've given you are bad. Five of Swords reversed. Wow, we just show up for these shitty arguments again and again, even though we hate it. Why do we do this? What if that was an advice card? What if the advice card was Five of Swords reversed? What if the advice that the universe had for you was approach everything as win-lose right now, push, push, push? Maybe that card is coming up because you need to learn how to assert yourself because you're not a very assertive person. You're used to being walked on. You're used to being a doormat. Maybe what feels aggressive to you is actually assertiveness. That may be why that card comes up in that way, for example. Then it can be a positive. Here's our last one for reversals. Take it and make it weird. It is the King of Swords. I think I talked about the King of Swords in reverse actually already, so we'll do... I'm looking for one I have not given a reversal meaning for. Ace of Swords, our only good sword card. Not the only one. Ace of Swords in reverse. Have you ever heard the phrase, she keeps reinventing herself? I've heard that, like, people said that about Madonna a lot, which I guess she does keep reinventing herself. And I know people who have kept reinventing themselves. So, like, the Ace of Swords, it's an epiphany, right? It is a reinvention. You're like, now I understand this. Now the truth has set me free. And now I have some changes to make, and I'm so excited about making them because I know that I'm on the right path. If the Ace of Swords is in reverse, take it and make it weird. Can you imagine, or have you ever met, somebody who's constantly having these little epiphanies that are kind of false epiphanies? Like, oh, I mean, the problem is that I actually hate this guy, and I shouldn't work out my problems with him. I should just get a new boyfriend again. The problem is I hate this job, and this job is never going to make me happy, so I'll just get a new different job. Again and again, and they've had 17 careers, and they're never happy. But instead of actually looking within for, like, what is it about this that's not making them happy, they just keep making a change. Not a meaningful change, a change without meaning. That could look like the Ace of Swords in reverse. Someone who's fooled themselves into believing they've had the epiphany when instead they're just kind of making change. I have a friend named Paul who has a song called I'm Tired of Seeking Progress and Only Getting Change. That's not the title of the song. That's like a line in the song. It's great. And I wish I could tell you the name of his band because I would love to give him a shout out. Maybe I'll look that up and put it in the show notes. So that might be what the Ace of Swords in reverse. Like, you believe you're making progress, you're actually only creating change in your life. Take it but make it weird. Think about stuck energy. Someone who moves every year because they just don't want to put down roots, which is okay, right? Except they're not happy about it. They're like, this is the place. This time, this is the place. This is it. And then next year it's Nashville. And next year it's Oakland. And then whatever. Anyway, that is my Witch You Got This tip. If you get a reversal, take it and make it weird. Let's talk. Let's talk about what's coming up. I will be doing the Suit of Wands in my next episode in October. I want to thank you for spending time with me today. I've got a few more of these episodes, Wands, and then the Suit of Cups to go through in October and November. And then in December, I'm going to be doing an episode that's really just all about like the practical skills of reading. And if you have questions and thoughts about like reading, I'm gonna be talking about that in that episode. I may also do an episode about spreads, and how you can use different tarot spreads, and also how you can work without a spread. Because going through the deck isn't the whole picture, right? There's a lot of skills on top of it that I think for many of us just come with experience, after doing a million readings. And I want to try to translate that into like, here's the skills you can learn, like the King of Swords. Like I have the curse of knowledge, and I'm going to try to choose to transmit that knowledge to you rather than just let you bumble through. I'm going to try and share about like skills that we can cultivate apart from just knowing the meanings of the cards that will really enrich and enhance our readings. So we've still got a few of these left in the series. If you like this podcast, please rate it and review it wherever you listen to podcasts. I have a few people who've reviewed me on Apple Music, or Apple Podcast and Spotify. And I looked up the other day and I saw that I have a 5-star podcast in both places, and I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. Svan, I know you're one of the people. Thank you. If you would like to support this podcast financially and unlock exclusive benefits, you can do so at patreon.com/SassafrasTarot for $1 a month or more. Patrons get access to extra content, personalized card pulls, a witchy Discord community, and more. If you have a question, idea, or suggestion, if you would like also to get that 8 of Swords meditation that I talked about, just message me or email me. I'm SassafrasTarot on all the social media sites, and sassafrastarot@gmail.com. You can also follow me at SassafrasTarot on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you'd like to order a reading, I now do that only on Etsy, because on social media there's been a lot of scammers, and so it's easier to just be like, Etsy, you're ordering from me if you order from my Etsy. So you can do that at etsy.com/shop/SassafrasTarot. One day I will get it together to like make a grown-up Sassafras Tarot website for you to order through, but this is not that day. Go to Etsy. As always, I'm going to take you out with a song, and I'm going to take you out with Up From Here. Up From Here is a song about belligerent positivity, which is the only kind that gets us through some of these sword situations. If swords are the school of hard knocks, then belligerent positivity is what gets us through school. Belligerent positivity, gallows humor, that's what allows us to move through these times in our life. And it's not, it's incredibly helpful, I think. That's what it means to be able to remain lighthearted. That's the intersection between Buddhism and gallows humor, is like having that detachment and awareness at the same time where you're interacting with your feelings and honoring them as these important things, to be detached enough to laugh at yourself and laugh at the situation. Because sometimes life is a pile of garbage, and it'll get better, you know what I mean? But sometimes what you need to hear isn't it'll get better. Sometimes what you need to do is just laugh really hard about what a garbage it is and experience that release of laughter, which is an option. We sometimes have a release of crying, and I'm giving you the option of release via laughter. So this is a song called Up From Here, and it's about belligerent positivity. If you like what you've been hearing musically, you can find me online, Rory Kelly, RORIE KELLY, on your favorite social media or music website. And this song is on Spotify and Apple Music and all of those places, and Bandcamp, and I have a couple people who have told me that when they're having a shitty day that they put this song on, and that is its exact purpose, and I'm grateful. Should we talk about the loss of tiny objects, very small specific parts without which nothing can be fixed? Should we talk about Mercury retrograde? It's totally cool, I love to put the past in perspective, but now that we are back in the present, everything in my life seems to be broken. Should we talk about my lack of... I always do it. I don't know what it is about this one line. You guys, Mercury's in the microwave. Everything in my life seems to be broken. Should we talk about my psychological state? I have a Freudian mental block around that. Let's not play with fire here. It's already been a long day. You cannot be Serious the way you're jerking me around. This bad luck is hilarious, 'cause you can't keep this fucker down. Should we talk about guitars and cars and bank accounts? It's a Russian roulette. Where will the problem be today? I'm one headlight short of the bright outlook. That's not a metaphor. I hope I don't get pulled over anyway. I thank my lucky stars that I'm good in a crisis. And thank the universe for giving me so much practice. Oh, you cannot be serious the way you're jerking me around. This bad luck is hilarious, 'cause you can't keep this fucker down. Don't threaten me with a good time. I wouldn't know what to do with it. Everything will be just fine as soon as I find my keys in my wallet. I can only go up from here. I can only go up, up. I can only go up from here. I can only go up, up. I can only go up from here. I can only go up, up. You cannot be serious the way you're jerking me around. This bad luck is hilarious, 'cause you can't keep this fucker down. No, 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 no. Watch me turn my luck around. No, no, no. You can't keep this fucker down. Thank you, friends. That song is called Up From Here. If you like it, you can hear the full studio version in all the places, on the Spotifys and the Bandcamps and the YouTubes, under the name Rory Kelly, RORIEKELLY. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Thank you for choosing to go through this like little mini version of the podcast where I'm doing this Teaching Tarot series. I realize it may not be for everyone, but I hope that even if like tarot is not a thing you intended to learn, that we're having a fun journey together. And I hope if you already read that like this is like, I don't know, maybe providing an interesting perspective, giving you some cool things to think about the cards. For me as a reader, I'm always like that. I always want to hear what other people think, because I always take away a little something that enhances my practice. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Be good to yourself. A lot of planets are in the microwave right now. Just take it slow, take it easy. Bye-bye, friends. Until next time.